He said he was leaving me at our daughter's graduation, but he started screaming when I smiled. The crowd clapped, cameras flashed, and Emily walked across the stage, her cap slightly tilted, her smile wide with pride. I clapped with everyone else, my hands steady, my lips parted in something close to peace. That was the moment Daniel leaned closer to me, still applauding, and whispered, "After this, we're done. I'm leaving you." Just like that. At our daughter's graduation. I didn't turn to look at him. I kept my eyes on Emily. Her robe swayed gently as she hugged the dean, her gold honors stole glinting under the lights. My hands never stopped clapping. I felt something inside me stretch, but it didn't break. He thought I'd fall apart. That I'd cry, beg, 'cause a scene. But I stayed seated. Silent. Not because I was strong, not yet, but because I had been preparing for this moment far longer than he realized. He just never paid enough attention to see it. 3 rows behind us, I saw her. Naomi. Her dark hair tied back neatly, a conservative navy dress, pearls too polished for someone in her position. She didn't look at me. She looked at him. She knew. He had told her what he was about to do. The seat between us remained empty, a metaphor too heavy to ignore. Me, him, silence, absence. That chair had been meant for my mother. She died last winter. He didn't come to the hospital. The announcer called the next name, and Emily exited the stage. I stood, finally, and smiled as she walked toward us. Her eyes were searching for me. Not for him. She hugged me first. He smiled for the camera. That perfect, politician smile. I stepped back just as the photographer clicked, letting the photo capture the distance between us. Me holding Emily, him reaching out to no one. After the photos, he tried to rush us to the car. I said I wanted a moment alone with Emily. He rolled his eyes and walked ahead. Naomi followed, 3 steps behind, as always. Like a shadow. No one asked for if. Emily squeezed my hand and said, "You look calm, Mom." Too calm. I just kissed her cheek and whispered, "Some things are heavier than sadness. But today isn't about him." The dinner was planned. A family table at the university restaurant. But when we arrived, my name wasn't on the reservation. Just his. Just 3 people, Daniel, Emily, and Naomi. The hostess looked confused. Emily looked furious. I looked at the reservation card and said, "It's fine. I'll eat somewhere else." Daniel didn't say a word. Naomi looked at her shoes, but I didn't leave. I walked 2 tables over and sat alone, in full view. I ordered a glass of wine. I watched as they were seated. The waitress hesitated. Naomi didn't touch the menu. Daniel looked over, maybe expecting a scene. I just raised my glass. And smiled. He stood up, furious, walked over and hissed, "What are you doing?" I replied, still seated, "Exactly what you told me. I'm letting you go." He left the restaurant 15 minutes later. Naomi trailed after him, confused. Unsteady. Emily walked over and joined me. "I'm not eating with liars," she said. "I'll sit with the woman who actually raised me." And in that moment, I knew. He had no idea what silence could do. But he was about to find out. Daniel used to say I was his compass. "You keep me grounded," he'd whisper, usually after one of his spontaneous, reckless ideas that I had to fix behind the scenes. We met in college. He was pre-dental, I was finance. He was charming, loud, and had a way of making everyone feel like the center of the universe. For a while, I believed I was his son. We married young. 24. Small ceremony, tight budget. I wore my mother's dress, altered with my own hands. He said he'd give me the wedding of my dreams later, once the business takes off. That wedding never came. But I waited. I always waited. I helped him open his first dental clinic. Took out part of my savings, signed for the loan in my name. I built the spreadsheets, registered the business, filed the taxes. I designed the first logo on my old laptop. I wasn't just his wife, I was the architecture behind his name. When he got his first feature in a local business magazine, he didn't mention me. "It was a short interview," he said. "They cut a lot out." I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. It was easier than admitting I was being erased in real time. We had Emily 4 years into the marriage. She was quiet like me, observant. She watched how he shifted when we had company, affectionate in front of others, distant when the house emptied. She clung to me. I carried both her and his dreams on my back. I stopped working for a few years after Emily was born. He said it was best for the family. But when I tried to go back, he discouraged it. "Who's going to manage the house? Emily needs you." I nodded. I folded my resume back into the drawer. Every birthday, I hoped he'd surprise me. Flowers, maybe. A letter. He gave me kitchen gadgets. "You said we needed a new blender," he'd say, genuinely unaware of what he was doing. Or maybe perfectly aware. When his second clinic opened, I handled the negotiations with the landlord. I sat through every boring legal meeting. But during the launch party, I stood in the back while he toasted his journey, his team, his effort. Naomi was already hired by then. I just hadn't noticed her smile yet. Vacations became rare. Anniversaries became rushed dinners. His phone, once left on counters freely, was now always in his pocket. Passwords changed. His silence grew heavier, coated in politeness. At church, he held my hand like it was habit. At home, he stopped noticing. When I cried, "Are you okay?" he'd ask, distracted by emails. I started answering, "I'm fine," before he even finished the sentence. He started referring to our home as my house. Our savings became his earnings. My role became invisible, unless something went wrong. Then I was the one who should have seen it coming. The last anniversary we spent together, he gave me a card. No flowers. Just a card. Inside, it said, "Thanks for everything you've done for Emily." Nothing about me. Just the job I'd performed that I kept. That card. Not for sentiment, but as proof. Proof that I had become the help, the shadow, the background noise. And yet I stayed. Because sometimes silence is the only thing a woman has left when no one's listening. He once promised me the world. What I got was a mirror that slowly erased me from it. The first time he forgot my birthday, Emily was 9. I baked my own cake, told her we'd make it a girl's day, and said nothing when he came home late, smelling of wine and someone else's perfume. He laughed, blamed traffic. I smiled. The cake stayed untouched. He started traveling more, conferences, expansions, partnerships. Always last minute. Always solo. I packed his bags, printed his tickets, and waited by the phone. Sometimes he forgot to call. Once, he called me by another name. At dinner parties, he praised Naomi's organization. "She keeps the business running," he'd say in front of guests. I was the one who trained Naomi. Taught her how to manage his calendar, sign invoices, track expenses. I had become the outdated version of the woman he was now replacing, piece by piece. He bought Naomi a smartwatch for Christmas. I saw the receipt in our shared bank statement. He told me it was for a client. I nodded. That was the year he gave me a generic robe, still in the store bag. No wrapping. No card. Our bedroom turned cold. He slept on the edge, barely touched. Me. "I'm tired," became the new excuse. Then it was too much on my mind. Then nothing at all. Just silence, weighted, deliberate, rehearsed. I once found a lipstick-stained napkin in his coat pocket. It wasn't mine. I placed it on his nightstand. He never asked. Just threw the coat away. Like he could erase what didn't fit his story. Every time I brought up how distant he'd become, he deflected. "You're overthinking. Don't start this again?" Eventually, I stopped asking. It wasn't worth the effort of being unheard. He stopped inviting me to company events. "It's all business, you'd be bored." The first year, I insisted. By the third, I stopped trying. I'd help him pick the tie, iron his shirt, and watch him walk out the door with 2 glasses in the passenger seat. One for him. One for her. Emily noticed. She once asked why Dad always looked happier when he wasn't home. I told her he was just stressed. But I saw it too. The light in his eyes dimmed around me. And I started shrinking to match it. He praised my cooking in front of guests but ate silently at home. He'd compliment my looks only when others were around. Behind closed doors, I was invisible. Useful, maybe. But not wanted. One night, I wore a dress I hadn't worn in years, red, fitted, elegant. I walked into the living room. He didn't look up from his laptop. Just muttered, "Isn't that a bit much for dinner?" I went back upstairs and changed into pajamas. He canceled our weekend getaway a day before. Something came up. Naomi posted a photo of a resort 3 hours away, same weekend, same view I had picked. She tagged no one, but I recognized the jacket on the chair behind her. His. I once told him I felt lonely, even when he was next to me. He said, "You have Emily. Isn't that enough?" Then he turned the TV on. The last red flag wasn't even red. It was beige. Boring. Predictable. He handed me a receipt for a necklace he bought, for a client's wife. He looked me in the eye and dared me to believe it. I didn't respond. I just filed it away, because I had stopped confronting him. Not out of fear. But because I was building something he couldn't see. A record. A silence. A storm. I found the photos in December. Emily had left her laptop open while uploading pictures from her birthday dinner. In the Downloads folder, tucked between assignments, was a zipped file named Office Trip. I clicked it by accident. The first image was of Daniel. Smiling. Arm around Naomi. A wine glass in hand. They were in Paris. He had told me it was a dental conference in Chicago. 5 days. He said the hotel was basic, just meetings and networking. But the Eiffel Tower doesn't stand in Illinois. Neither does the boutique hotel with heart-shaped champagne flutes in the background. My hands shook, but I didn't scream. I saved the images. I emailed them to myself. I wrote no message, just the subject line, proof. I deleted no trace from Emily's laptop. If she saw it later, that would be his cross to carry, not mine. The worst part wasn't the photo. It was the date stamp. October 15th. My birthday. The day he came home with nothing but a shrug and the smell of hotel soap. Next year, he said, when I asked if we were doing anything. Work's crazy. I printed one of the photos. Folded it neatly. Slid it inside his drawer, next to the watch I gave him for our 10th anniversary. I waited 2 days. He never mentioned it. A week later, Naomi posted a subtle Instagram story. Her hand resting on a table. A bracelet. Gold, delicate, with a small D charm. It was the same piece I had pointed out months ago in a catalog, hoping he'd get it for me. He hadn't. We went to a holiday party together, the only one he allowed me to attend. Naomi was there. In the same bracelet. She didn't look at me. He didn't introduce us. Someone asked, "Claire, are you Daniel's wife?" Naomi answered before I could, "She used to be." He laughed. That night, he didn't come home. Emily waited up. I told her he had gone to handle work. Her eyes didn't believe me, but her lips said nothing. Christmas came. No tree. No dinner. He claimed an emergency at the clinic. Emily and I exchanged books. She gave me a framed photo of us from her childhood, me holding her, both of us smiling. The frame was cracked, slightly chipped at the bottom. "It's perfect," I told her. "Just like we are." On New Year's Eve, he stayed out. I watched the fireworks from the kitchen window. Naomi posted a photo of champagne. Same brand we used to toast with. I counted the glasses. 2. I once heard him in the study, murmuring on the phone. "You know I can't leave her yet." His voice wasn't guilty. Just annoyed. As if I were a technical issue, not a person. I stood outside the door for a full minute. Then I walked away. The final humiliation came at Emily's graduation planning dinner. He arrived late. Wore a new suit. Naomi waited in the car. Emily asked him directly, "Are you seeing her?" He laughed. "That's none of your concern." She stood up. I stayed seated. He turned to me and said, "You should be more grateful. You've had a good life." Then added, "Don't ruin this for Emily." As if my silence was the problem, not his betrayal. I looked at him then, really looked. He was no longer the man I married. He was the man I had tolerated, enabled, softened, until I couldn't anymore, because betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's quiet. Repeated. Layered in dinners, in lies, in bracelets meant for others. And I had eaten every course in silence, but the bill was coming. And he had no idea who was holding the check. After the graduation dinner, I didn't speak for 3 days. Not to Emily. Not to Daniel. I moved through the house like a fog, folding laundry, wiping counters, making meals he no longer ate. Silence wasn't a punishment. It was the only thing that didn't betray me. At night, I sat in the living room while he slept in the guest room. He didn't ask to come back. I didn't offer. The bed we shared for 20 years now held only the memory of someone I used to love. And someone I had become a stranger to. I stared at our wedding photo for hours. The frame was dusted weakly, but the glass was cracked in the corner. I hadn't noticed until then. Maybe it had been like that for a long time. Like us, broken quietly, surviving out of habit. My body ached. Not from age, but from carrying disappointment too long. My hands shook when I made tea. My reflection looked hollow, a woman who had mastered endurance but forgotten desire. Not for him. For herself. Emily asked if I was okay. I told her yes. She didn't believe me. One night, she left a note on my pillow, "You don't have to be strong for me." I folded it and placed it in my journal. Her handwriting was steady. Mine was gone. I stopped wearing my wedding ring. Not out of anger, but because it felt foreign. Like a story someone else had written about a woman I no longer was. I placed it on the sink. He never noticed. Or maybe he did, and chose silence. That was his language. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't stand the joy of it. I sat in the car with the engine off, staring at the garage door, wondering if I had wasted my youth on someone who never saw me. The answer came quietly, yes. I tried to pray. The words felt dry. Like repeating lines in a play I no longer believed in. Faith had been our family's foundation. But now, it felt like the echo of a house we'd already burned. He started bringing Naomi into our spaces. Subtle at first. A receipt on the counter. A scarf draped over a chair. One afternoon, I opened the fridge and saw her favorite wine. Not mine. Not Emily's. Hers. That bottle felt like a slap, chilled, precise, intentional. The mirror became my enemy. I used to trace my features with pride, now I avoided eye contact with myself. Every wrinkle, every line, every gray strand whispered. He left because of this. And I almost believed it, but it wasn't the aging. It was the habit. He didn't want someone real, he wanted someone new. Unburdened by his past. Free of the sacrifices that shaped his present. He wanted applause, not history. I journaled every night. Not to remember, but to understand. What had I missed? When did I stop being enough? The answers never came. Just questions. Like dust. Always returning, even after you clean. One morning, I found a lipstick mark on a cup in the dishwasher. Not mine. I took it out, stared at it, then placed it on the top shelf, where neither of them would look. I needed proof. Not for confrontation. For preparation. My therapist once said, you don't have to stay strong. You just have to stay. I stopped going after Daniel found the receipts. We don't need outsiders, he said. But now I knew, he was the outsider. And I had been living in exile in my own life. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just went silent. I wore black for a week. Not because I was mourning the marriage, but because I was burying the version of me that begged to be seen, and from that funeral, something else would rise. Slowly. Quietly. But with purpose. It started with the insurance documents. I wasn't looking for anything. I just needed to update Emily's information before her move abroad. But Daniel's files were messy, unlike mine. In the pile, I found a folder labeled, Trust Holdings. Not ours. Just his name. I opened it. Inside were accounts I didn't recognize, one in the Cayman Islands. One under a business name I'd never seen. The balances were sickening. Hundreds of thousands. We had once argued about replacing a broken dishwasher. He said we couldn't afford it. I took photos. Every page. I uploaded them to a private cloud folder under my maiden name. Then I printed one, the transfer made 2 weeks after our anniversary. Same date he said his clinic had a slow month. I placed it under his office mouse. Naomi's name wasn't on the documents. But her signature was. A silent, curling signature on a lease contract for an apartment downtown. A corporate retreat space. She didn't even try to hide it. The lease was co-signed by Daniel. The apartment was 3 blocks from her gym. I mapped it. Checked the timestamps of his calendar. He had board meetings at least twice a week, each within walking distance of that address. Always late afternoons. I drove by once. No confrontation. I parked, waited. 40 minutes later, he came out. No coat. No briefcase. Just his shirt untucked and a smile too fresh. She followed. Her hair wet, like she had just showered. They didn't see me. I didn't want them to be back home. I opened our safe. I had the code, I set it up. Inside were old tax documents, birth certificates. And a folder with divorce options, in bold. He had already consulted a lawyer. The date? 3 weeks before Emily's graduation. He hadn't filed yet. He was waiting. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for me to snap. To scream. To leave. But I didn't. I took the folder, copied every page, returned it exactly where I found it. Let him believe I was still blind. That week, I visited my own lawyer. Quiet, calm, discreet. She specialized in asset tracing. Within hours, she confirmed what I suspected. Daniel had moved almost half our liquid savings into untraceable accounts under shell companies. But he made one mistake. He used my name on an old document that tied him to me financially. That was all we needed. I also found the prenup. Hidden in his office drawer, under a pile of brochures. He forgot I helped write it. And that I never signed the updated version he slipped in years later. Legally, it meant the original terms. And my entitlements still stood. One evening, Emily left a USB by mistake in the study. I opened it to return it, but it wasn't hers. It was labeled, clinic footage. Surveillance backups. One folder caught my eye, staff break room. I clicked. There they were. Daniel and Naomi. Kissing. Laughing. On company time. In company. Property. I didn't cry. I saved the videos. I clipped the timestamps. I stored them in a new drive labeled, Smile. Because that was what he would see next time he thought I was still asleep. I wrote a letter. No emotions. Just dates, facts, screenshots. I sealed it in an envelope. Placed it in the kitchen drawer next to the utensils. The label read, in case of silence. Then, I booked a suite at the same hotel where he had taken Naomi in Paris. For me and Emily. Graduation weekend. Non-refundable, ocean view. I paid in full. Using his hidden account. He hadn't logged out of his laptop. He never thought I'd look. The password was her name. But the power was mine. Graduation day arrived like a quiet storm. Emily wore blue, her favorite color, and I wore a navy dress with the pearl earrings my mother gave me. I hadn't worn them since her funeral. You look calm, Emily said. I just smiled. Daniel arrived late. Naomi was already seated 3 rows behind, pretending not to watch us. He didn't even greet me. Just adjusted his cufflinks and said, "Let's try to behave today." I nodded. My silence was agreement enough. When Emily walked across the stage, I clapped with the same hands that had carried her through every storm. Daniel leaned in and whispered, "After this, we're done." I kept clapping. I didn't flinch. I had heard my death sentence, and I smiled anyway. At dinner, the reservation was in his name. For 3. Not 4. My name was missing. So was my patience, but not my grace. I walked 2 tables over, ordered wine, and let them feel my absence. In full view. He came to my table, voice low, trying to intimidate. "What game is this?" I looked at him, calm. "The one you started. I just learned how to play." He blinked. I handed him a small black envelope. "Open it at home." Emily joined me moments later. "He thinks you're breaking," she whispered. I took a sip of wine and replied, "Then he should read slower." At home, I waited. He opened the envelope in the kitchen. Inside, screenshots, documents, printed emails, photos of him and Naomi, bank transfers, the surveillance footage from the clinic. And one final note: "You may have left me, but I was never behind you." He didn't yell. Not yet. He walked into the living room, pale. "Where did you get this?" I stood. "While you were busy watching her undress, I was watching you fall." Silence. Just silence. Then he screamed, "You were spying on me?" I nodded once. "I was documenting my erasure. It's the least I could do after financing your rise." The next morning, I filed the divorce publicly. My lawyer sent him the papers, with every clause enforcing the original prenup, plus a detailed complaint for misuse of marital funds and workplace misconduct. His name would echo in courtrooms before it ever returned to social media. The clinic board received an anonymous package. Inside, printed footage, timestamped. Naomi was suspended. Daniel was removed temporarily. Reputation, meet consequence. Naomi texted him later that night. "You said she didn't know." He didn't respond. I had already blocked her number on his phone a week ago. Forwarded the text to my inbox. Just in case. The apartment downtown? Vacated. Lease terminated. I called the building myself. "He'll no longer need it," I said. "The woman he bought it for was temporary." I canceled every joint account. Moved my funds. Transferred the house deed. He had forgotten I was co-owner. With his signature on old refinancing papers. I had every right to freeze the sale. So I did. He was locked out within days. The car Naomi used? Registered under my name. I sent a tow truck to retrieve it. No call. No warning. Just silence, and the sound of her confusion when it vanished. From the clinic lot, Daniel tried calling me. Once. I answered. "You destroyed me," he said. "Irreplia, no. You just finally saw what I looked like when I stopped trying to be small." Then I hung up. Blocked him. Changed my number. Emily watched me, tears in her eyes. Not of sadness. But relief. "You didn't just walk away, Mom," she said. "You made him feel it." And I had. Not with rage. But with presence. With silence. With a smile that said, "You lost everything the day you stopped looking at me." I didn't move out. He did. I kept the house, not for him, not for memories, but because it was mine too. Every nail, every floorboard, every quiet night I spent waiting for someone who had already left. Now, it belonged to me. In silence. And in full. I painted the bedroom. White walls, clean sheets, new light. I threw out the mattress we shared and bought one for myself. I slept in the center. No edge. No emptiness. The first night alone, I lit a candle, not for romance, but for peace. No footsteps in the hallway, no lies in the dark. Just me, my breathing, and the soft crackle of a wick that didn't ask questions. Emily left for her internship abroad. Before she boarded the plane, she hugged me tight and said, "You're the reason I believe in strength." I smiled, tucked a note into her bag, "Be everything I couldn't be," and more. I started consulting again. Quietly. My first client was a small business owner, a woman rebuilding after her own divorce. She didn't know my story, but she looked at me like she felt it. That was enough. The ring was still on the sink. Just like him, never where I needed. One morning, I picked it up, walked to the backyard, and buried it under the roses. That spring, they bloomed like never before. I changed my name back. Claire Monroe. The name I had before I folded myself into someone else's dreams. It felt foreign at first, then it felt like home. I traveled alone. Walked through Lisbon's alleys, tasted wines in Argentina, read poetry in quiet cafes. No one asked me to shrink. No one expected me to smile unless I meant it. Naomi left the clinic 2 months later. Rumors whispered of tension, scandal, fractured image. Daniel's expansion stalled. Investors backed out. His name wasn't as clean as he thought. I never told anyone what I'd done. Not fully. I let the consequences speak. I let the world connect the dots. I was never loud. But I was thorough. Sometimes, I still see him. In town. He looks older. Tired. He tries not to look at me. But once, he did, and I smiled. Not out of pride. But because I had survived something he will never understand, being erased, and returning brighter. I wrote everything down. Not to publish. But to remember. Every detail. Every silence. Every proof. It's all there, in a box labeled closure. I kept one photo of us. The wedding. It's in the attic now, behind an old suitcase. Not out of hate. But because I no longer needed to remind me of who I was. Or who I became. He thought breaking me would free him. But all it did was show me I never needed him to begin with. I wasn't reborn. I was revealed. Piece by piece. Through fire, through ash, through silence, and the smile he feared most was the one I wore when I finally walked away, without looking back.